If a Malawian helped build South Africa's labour movement, at what point does someone stop being a foreigner and becomes part of a country's story? If you haven't seen me before, my name is Noreen, and I share African stories that deserve to be better known. Today I want to tell you about a man most Africans have never heard of. His name is Clements Kadili. He was born in Malawi in 1896, yet he would go on to become one of the most influential labour leaders in South African history. And I think his story is especially interesting at a time when conversations about migration, identity and xenophobia are happening across South Africa. And before we get into Kadili, here's something many people don't realize. Kadili wasn't unusual. By the early 1900s, hundreds of thousands of Africans were crossing colonial borders in search of work. Workers traveled from Malawi, from Mozambique, Lesotho, Zimbabwe, and beyond. Many ended up in South Africa's mines, railways, farms, and ports. In fact, South Africa's economy did not develop in isolation. It was built with the labor of people from across southern Africa. The truth is that many African borders are younger than the communities that live around them. Long before colonial powers drew lines on maps, African people were trading, marrying, traveling, and building lives across the continent. Then came Clements Kadili. In 1918, he arrived in Cape Town looking for opportunity. So imagine that for a moment. You are far away from home. Your accent is different. You have no political connections, no wealth, no influence. Yet, within a few years, tens of thousands of workers would be listening to your speeches. Kadili quickly saw that black workers were doing some of the hardest jobs in the country, but they had little protection, poor wages, poor working conditions, very few rights. So in 1919, he helped establish what became known as the Industrial and Commercial Workers Union, or ICU. What happened next surprised almost everyone. The movement grew rapidly. Workers joined in numbers, not only in South Africa, but across Southern Africa. At its peak, the ICU became one of the largest African-led worker movements the continent had ever seen. And at the center of it all was a man from Malawi, a migrant worker, a foreigner, at least on paper. Yet, someone who helped organize South African workers and fight for better conditions. Someone whose name became known across the country. And here's something else. Many South Africans today have never heard of Clements Kadili. Yet historians often describe him as one of the pioneers of black trade unionism in Southern Africa. His story reminds us that history is often more complicated than the stories we tell ourselves. Because when we look back at the people who shaped a nation, we don't always ask where they were born. We ask what they built. We ask what they contributed to. We ask what difference they made. And that brings me back to the question I started with. If a Malawian helped build South Africa's labour movement, at what point does someone stop being a foreigner and become part of a country's story? If we celebrate the people who helped build our countries, should it matter where they were born? Or should it matter what they contributed? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. This is the Africa Not Shown, but I'm here to show you.